Away3D 4 is built on Stage3D, which has been a lot of buzz about. Stage3D it's actually quite simple. It's a very thin little interface, allowing Flash to talk directly to Direct3D, which is kind of DirectX 9 or 10, 11. I don't think it was implemented much before then. I could be wrong. I don't really know a great deal about the history of that. Or if you're on Linux or Mac, you've got OpenGL, and that gives you a dedicated 3D render pipeline in the GPU. It's very low level. Stage3D, I wouldn't advise trying to program for it directly. You can, but it's quite fiddly stuff, and it was built for people like the Away3D team to build libraries on top of it. So you've actually got a stack of technologies. You really ought to be working, unless you have a direct interest in the mechanics of how 3D stuff works, with one of the libraries. The first thing that trips most people up is it's not part of the display list. So the Flash stage will always sit in front. So the Flash stage does all your. I've got a cursor here somewhere. Your Flash stage does all of just exactly what you'd expect, and anything past the GPU for rendering is rendered on Stage3D, which sits just behind the 2D stage. Now, of course, on Away3D 3.6, PaperVision, all of these things, they actually drew directly into Flash's display list. This is now completely separated from Flash's display list, and that causes quite a few problems if you're just expecting it to do what Flash normally does, because it doesn't. There are actually now multiple stages in Flash Player 11, so you can have you've got your normal stage. You can have multiple instances of Stage3Ds of different sizes. You can scatter them all about the place, and they actually sit in front of StageVideo at the back. So you can actually do some fairly complex stuff, especially with AR. There's no reason you can't, render video at the back, several different bits of 3D content in front of that, and a sort of 2D UI in front of that, which is fantastically powerful. I haven't actually tried combining video and 3D yet, but I would absolutely love to when I get the time. So Stage3D, that is, because it talks to OpenGL and Direct3D, it thinks in the way that all traditional 3D systems do in terms of meshes made out of polygons. If any of you are used to working with 3D models, a lot of 3D models will have will use rectangular polygons as well as triangles. Stage3D doesn't. It needs triangles. They're simpler and easier to use. So if you're trying to import models which are made with square polygons anywhere, you're going to have to get them into Blender or 3D Studio Max or something like this, and convert all of the squares into triangles, which is fine if you're a 3D modeler, and if you're not, I mean, just open Blender or open 3D Studio Max, and it's like a whole nother world. It's like Photoshop's just gone insane. I don't think actually I've used an application as complex as Blender ever. I can't think of anything with that many different options and windows in it. It's quite fun, but there's much more of a learning curve than in Away3D, which is really simple. Meshes use bitmap materials generally. Vectors don't really have much place in the GPU render pipeline. It doesn't think like that. So when you're used to using Flash and you just think of, oh yeah, it's another Flash library and we can do this and we can use sprites and stuff, you can't. That unseated me, because I was quite used to using sprites, movie clips, and vectors for forever. And you do think of vectors in 3D. It's a point in 3D space, a point in 2D space, but they behave very, very differently, and you get all sorts of anti-aliasing problems. The display list, on the other hand, of course, Flash is a vector, rendering machine first and foremost, and although it handles bitmaps brilliantly these days, that's not really the core of what it does. So that's the first difference you've got to be aware of.